The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Live from Boston, Massachusetts, this is Unscheduled with Les Skymo and Dave. And I want to thank our military that's stationed all around the world. I think, Dave, it's 28 military bases throughout the world. And I want to thank them. God bless them and God bless their families, Dave. And me and you both are vets. And you as an Air Force veteran and I'm an Army veteran. And you know, that's one thing I'll never regret doing was taking some time out of my own personal life and giving it to my country, Dave. And I'm very proud of that. And today, you know, there's a lot going on in politics today, Dave. But I want to ask you this question. I want to start with this right here. And this is to all the Christians out there. That just want to, you know, there's a lot of Christians, Dave, and I've heard this off and on my whole life. Well, there's nothing we can do about it, and whatever happens, happens. And I can give you Bible for that's not necessarily true, Dave. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 14, God says this, if thou walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments as thy father David did. Now he's talking to Solomon. Then I will lengthen thy days. Sometimes, and this has been said about a lot of things, where God give Abram the Canaan land, when he led Joshua into Canaan. All the prophets, all the kings, God give this, he said that you would prosper. And if you just done these couple things, walk in his statutes, keep his commandments, and there are things, Dave, that are under our control. There are times when there's things when we can do things that will change the outcome of things, Dave. We just can't use Bible scripture and look at it in a cockeyed way just to justify sitting and doing nothing.
Well, I would agree with you there. You know, and God said in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, he says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. So there you go. If you turn from your wicked ways, God promises he's going to heal your land. So that's what it takes. It's you do something, you stretch out in faith and you do something and God fulfills his promises to you by doing the same thing. He gives you a commitment when you give him a commitment. And that holds true. It holds true all through the Bible that God demands obedience, and it's just pure and simple. He demands obedience in like you said, following his statutes and just walking in the word that he gives you.
Right, and that can change the outcome of things, you know, and. You know, Bible prophecy, Dave, is conditional. You know, it depends on what you do. It depends on what the nation does. It depends on what the people do for certain outcomes or don't do in a lot of cases. You know, and when Abraham at the time, when he went and stood in the gap for Lot, you know, he knew God well enough where he went and was dealing with him and trying to bargain with God. Okay, and God put conditions on that. Yeah, if you can find 50, if you can find 10, but God knew there wasn't that many righteous in there. We saved Lot and his family. So the people perished for what they didn't do. Okay, but Lot and his family got out because of what Abraham done. So, you just can't sit and do nothing and just say it's the will of God. Now, God has a divine will and God has a permissive will. And, we got to get in there and fight for righteousness, Dave, because the things, and here's where I'm coming from, Dave. When I look at things that's going on today, when they're coming at President Trump over this meeting that he had with Putin up there in Russia, okay, even John Brennan, okay, now he was nominated for CIA director, and he was a CIA director by Barack Obama. But did you know he said it was treasonous? The meeting that President Trump had with Putin, it bordered on treason. Now, not only was he a former CIA director, he's a former communist. He was a communist.
I think he voted for a communist in one of the elections back in the 1970s.
In
1976.
Yeah, in 1980.
Was it 80?
It's in 1980. How did this man get a Secret Service clearance?
Well, he's nothing but a political hack.
That's all he is.
And he's just a partisan.
That's all he is.
And if he claims to be anything else, then he's a liar too. But that's what he is a political partisan, and he's a hack. He's just whatever the Democrat Party wants to put out there, he does it.
Well, yeah. Well, and he's playing for the mainstream media and for the crooked Democrat Party. And I believe the only reason that Barack Obama nominated him because he was a communist. Now he's a Muslim. Do you know he converted to Muslim? To Islam?
It wouldn't surprise me.
And but that coming from somebody that likes of him, it don't mean beans to me. It actually ticks me off. Sean Hannity, I agree with what he said. Journalism is dead, brother.
Yeah, sure.
The tough hustle of a good journalist, you don't see it anymore from the mainstream media. They're lazy. They're sorry. They feed off of just whatever they can make up. They make stuff up these days, Dave. They don't go out and beat the bushes for stories anymore. They just make stuff up and propaganda. It's the same thing
that's what it is.
That John McCain got caught up in when he was a POW in Vietnam, and that's somebody else I want to get on here later.
Yeah, if you got core beliefs, there's no way you can become a Muslim.
No.
And I heard John McCain, speaking of John McCain, he said this. He goes, I'm a Christian, but I'm not the born-again kind.
Well, he's in a lot of trouble.
Think about that. Jesus said in John chapter 3, he goes to Nicodemus, he says, you must be born again. And there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
You can't be a Christian unless you're born again.
That's according to the Word of God.
The old man dies, and then you take on you become a new creation in Christ Jesus, which is that new creation is being born again. The desire you had in your heart changes, and the things that you used to do, you don't want to do anymore, and the things that you sometimes, even when you're a believer, the things you want to do, you have a problem doing because you're in the flesh. I mean, the flesh, we're in a fleshly body, and we have to control the flesh, but nevertheless, as long as we're in the flesh, we will be tempted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, sin's fun, brother,
Yeah, it gets old, though. Even that gets old after a while.
But see, here's the problem with it, Dave, is after a while, you get trapped in that. You get addicted to things. You become a slave to things. I know from personal experience, you get deep into things that will destroy your life, that destroy your health. And I tell you what, as far as being a Christian, the Lord has never asked me to do anything that would hurt me. It was always to benefit me financially, spiritually, or for my health. It has always benefited me. You know, life is a gift, brother. It's a precious gift. And when I was out there doing drugs and drinking and running around and doing all the crazy things I was doing, Dave, I never give it a second's thought that I was knocking years off my life, that I was shaving time off my life that God gave me, okay, to enjoy it, you know. And I thought I was enjoying it, but, you know, it cost me money in court, it cost me time in jail, and it cost me agony at home. And, you know, when it all boiled down to it, Dave, and I turned my life around, you know what? It wasn't so much fun after all, brother. And, you know, it ain't what it's cracked up. It ain't what it's cracked up to be in the end, but it's so sad, Dave, that you can get involved in things that will just snuff your life right out.
You know, the old saying goes, it says sin takes you further than you want to go, and it keeps you longer than you want to stay, and it's much harder to get out of than you think.
And you pay a bigger price than you want to pay.
Yeah, it's a much bigger price than you're willing to pay. But thank God there is a Lord in heaven who paid that price for us, so we don't have to pay that price because we couldn't pay the price. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Even if a person could jump up on a cross and crucify themselves and die, they could still be lost because we are not a perfect sacrifice.
No,
we're sinners saved by grace, and nowhere in the Bible that teaches that we can die for our own sins, and we can only die in our sins, or we can be saved, and that's what God requires, is that you believe on Him in order to be saved, because you can't save yourself. And there's so many people think, well, if I live a good life and I do this and I do that and I don't hurt anybody and I'm faithful to church and I do this, I do everything by the book, that I'm going to be okay. But the Bible doesn't teach that.
Right.
And like I said earlier in John chapter 3, Jesus talking to Nicodemus, he said, you must be born again. Nicodemus could not even understand the things that Jesus was saying to him. He says, the wind comes from, he says, you don't know where the wind's coming from and you don't know where it's going. The wind is a spirit. He says, you don't know where the spirit comes from. In other words, he didn't really know where Jesus came from, and he didn't know where he was going because he wasn't born again.
He was in the flesh.
And the simple things that he tried to teach him, he couldn't receive it because he was a fleshly man. Right. Though he was one of the masters in Israel, there were 70, I think, that, and he was one of them.
Highly educated.
Right, that the Sanhedrin that were considered the masters, who understood the Bible, who practically probably memorized probably the entire Old Testament. Definitely the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, they definitely had memorized. But these men who were in the Sanhedrin were masters, and they would eventually, one of them would be voted high priest, and they would take over as high priest for a period of time, and then they would go back into the 70. So this is what God teaches, that it's not by how good we are that we go to heaven, or how bad we are. Right. If we're a bank robber, a murderer, a killer, like that man was executed either yesterday or today in the prison up in northern Ohio, if he was saved, if he knew Jesus Christ, he's in heaven now.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So, but you can be a murderer, but a lot of people don't understand that. It's what you were and what you come out of by the blood of Jesus Christ. That's how you attain salvation. Right. It's not by your works.
Well, see, Dave, that's why it's so important to, as a Christian, to try to evaluate things as best you can through the eyes of Christ, because flesh man, I know for myself, I get angry quick. I don't like to be pushed around. I had to bite my tongue and things like that. And, that's we got different personality traits, different things we have to deal with in our personalities. And, flesh man wants to lash out at everything. Flesh man wants to retaliate. He wants to get even. He wants to even the score, you know. But now, back to John McCain now. John McCain said President Trump's performance with Putin was a disgrace. Man, I tell you what, I hate to say all this about a comrade, okay, but Mr. John McCain, you're no hero of mine, buddy. And, you know, that guy, he got, he made, like, 20-something, combat flights. He got shot down on his last flight, and he was took prisoner and a POW. Now, he didn't have a cakewalk in there. It was pretty rough on him in the beginning. But you know that he made 33 propaganda films for the North Vietnamese. And not only that, they for approximately 20 hours of combat service. And I've got it here in my notes, and I'll get it. And 23 combat missions. He got over 27 medals, David, for that. And now listen to this. He was awarded a Silver Star, a Legion of Merit for Valor, a Distinguished Flying Cross. My father-in-law got that one. 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Commendation Medals, plus 2 Purple Hearts, and a dozen other medals, and for 20 hours of combat service, and for 23 combat mission flights, and he's a phony.
Well, look who his father and grandfather were.
Yeah,
they were Navy admirals. So,
yeah.
So therefore, he had an inside track to receiving all those medals. You know, that's just the way it is.
It's a shame, brother.
It's who you know.
He crashed 3 jets in training. He was out of a class of 899, David. He finished 894th out of that class, down at the bottom, brother. And they got him, you know, held up as this big hero. And if you look at his mannerisms, and do you know, now this is something, he voted against every single pay and benefit increase for the military and veterans throughout his entire political career. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
No, very few people know that. He voted against every darn one of them, and he claims to be a soldier's congressman. And then he takes credit for the GI Bill. Dave, he voted against the GI Bill. Okay, what, you know, and like I said, his own men over there, the other POWs over there, Hanoi Hilton, David, nicknamed him the Songbird. And when he started doing propaganda for him, then he started getting a special treatment. He was in a hospital. They didn't get, the prisoners never got hospitalization over there. It was him, 2 other American turncoats that was put in the hospital over there and treated. And during the 5 years that he was in prison over there, and they wanted to let him out early, and the only reason he didn't get out early, they was going to send him home because, number one, he'd done give them everything they wanted to know. The American aircraft shoot downs went up by 64% after John McCain got captured. Brother, he told them everything. He gave them everything. And the only reason after he gave them everything they wanted, they told him that they would let him go home. And the only reason he didn't, it wasn't because he was so patriotic. It was he knew if he come home, that would destroy the rest of his career. That he would be looked at unfavorably if he come home early and left them other boys there. To this day, Dave, he denies that there's any MIAs over in Vietnam. Now, what is his agenda? What's going on? He has had his entire military record since he was captured. He's had all that sealed. Now, you tell me why he's had his entire military record sealed under the guise of national security. Because he's a dirty liar. He's a dirty pilot, and that's not easy for me to say, Dave.
He sounds a lot like John Kerry in a way, doesn't he?
He sounds exactly like John Kerry. And like I said, it's not easy. It's not easy for me to say that. But this comes from Bill Bell. Bill Bell, a veteran of Vietnam and former chief of U.S. Office for POW and MIA affairs. So this didn't just come from somebody off the block. You know what I mean? And President Trump had it right when it come to John McCain, brother. And I have no respect for the man whatsoever. And to turn around and to vote for every pay increase since he's been in office, since he's been a politician, vote against every pay increase and turn right around and vote against the GI Bill and vote against them pay increases. What kind of man is that? He sure ain't looking out for his brothers and sisters in arms, is he?
Doesn't sound like it.
It burns me up. Mitch McConnell. Did you see Mitch McConnell the other day on TV?
What was he?
He goes out there.
Talking about Trump?
Well, he goes out there and apologizes. This was after the EU meeting. And when President Trump blasted Germany for buying oil and natural gas off of Russia, well, a day after that, I think a day or two after that, here comes Mitch McConnell, more or less apologizing to the EU over Trump. Well, we're good allies, and we've been this, we've been friends, blah, 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 blah. And it was pretty near an apology for President Trump sticking his finger more or less in their face and telling them, hey, pay up. And then Mitch McConnell turned right around and do the same thing. And, apologize. He reminded me of Barack Obama is what he reminded me of. That gets under my skin, Dave. You know, he's another, what do you call it?
A rhino?
Yeah, he's a rhino, but he's establishment.
He's establishment. That's for sure. But all of them, they'll turn tail and run when the going gets tough.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing about it, what Trump's thinking, and I don't blame him for thinking this way, he's got a mindset of saying, look, the intelligence has been wrong so many times on so many different things.
Sure.
They said there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
That was in Syria.
That never happened. It never materialized. They say that Pakistan never had no chance of developing an atomic bomb. That was wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Then they said, well, all these different things that they should have known, they're surprised by. It's amazing to me that we don't have the best intelligence in the world.
Yeah.
I think maybe Israel does.
Probably does.
Because their lives depend on it. They have to.
Right.
They have to have the Mossad has to be good intelligence because, let's face it, they're a tiny country surrounded by enemies. They have to have good intelligence.
Right.
Whereas I think our intelligence has probably got a little bit lazy over the years because.
Well, they depend on technology too much.
Well, yeah, they listen to everything, but signals intelligence.
How many spies we have in these other countries, Dave, that's out there beating the brush, infiltrating all these groups? You never hear about that. You never hear about it like you used to, And, but, another thing that burns me up, and now this Chris Gagan, did you hear about him in Belmont County, Ohio?
Mm-mm.
Well, he was a GOP chairman. He resigned after Trump's comments on Putin, And what burns me up about this whole thing, he's no doubt probably a never Trumper anyway, probably another rhino, but he's using the excuse of Trump's meeting with Putin and he didn't like it because he took Putin's answer over our own intelligence, which that ain't what he done. they're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. Well, even after he clarified what he tried to say, you know, he there again, this man is not a politician, Dave, and they don't know how to handle it when he says things that they don't agree with. But all this phony anger, right along with this ex-GOP chairman, and he resigned, like I said, right after Trump's meeting with Putin. And then you got all this. You've seen it all now. You know, I avoided the news yesterday because that's all I heard was them on to Trump over.
Our mics on?
Yeah, our mics is on.
I'll have more latitude with Vladimir after the election's over, and we'll get together.
Oh, thank you, Congress. Thank you.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember. But see,
Obama didn't think nobody heard him.
Yeah, but you know, here I got an opinion on that. Okay, when President Trump he goes to the UN and he tells them to pay up. He's sick and tired of America been taken advantage of. He goes to the EU. He goes gangster on them. Pay up. We're tired of protecting you and paying the bill. Okay. And then before that, it's the tariffs on China. And then China with their little weak retaliation. And they're all over President Trump over that. You know, they're going to make our allies mad. Don't talk to our allies that way. Oh, my God. They get their panties all in a wad. And then when he goes and tries to be diplomatic, Dave, all he was trying to do was be diplomatic to where he could work with Vladimir Putin was all he was trying to do. And then they drum up all this phony anger, and they attack him on it. I think, you know what I think it is? I think they're trying to set a trap for him, brother. I think they're trying to set a trap, and many of the Republicans are in cahoots with the Democrats, which are in cahoots with the deep state, the Peter Strzoks, and all them. The Comeys, I think the conspiracy still lives, brother.
I think it's as simple as this: that there's good and evil, and it's either on the good side or you're on the bad side. And I can prove it. I think this word sounds. Listen to this for a second. This is out of the Gospel.
I laid on my daddy.
This is out of the Gospel of Matthew. It's chapter 21, beginning with verse 28.
Before you start, hello, Facebook friends. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay, this is Jesus speaking here. He says, "Well, what do you think?" This is a New King James Version. It's not the old. He says, "But what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, 'Son, go work today in my vineyard.' He answered and said, 'I will not.' But afterward he got to thinking. He said, I'm going to obey my father, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to work in the vineyard like he said.' So he regretted it, and he went out and he did it. Then came the second son, and likewise he answered and said, 'I go, sir.' But you know what? He ended up not going. He just laid around and was being lazy.
Yeah.
He said, and then Jesus asked the question. He says, 'Which of the 2 did the will of the Father?' They said to him, 'The first.' And Jesus said to them, 'Assuredly I say to you, that a tax collector and harlots enter the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But tax collectors and harlots believed him, and when you saw it, you did not afterward relent and believe him.'" Now, think about this now. Obama is the son that said, "Yes, I'll do it," but didn't do anything with Russia. Didn't do a thing about it. He spoke the good words. He said, "Yeah, I'll do it. Yes." But the one who said his word's not quite right ended up doing the right thing.
Perfect scripture, Dave.
And this is exactly what Donald Trump has done. He has done the will of the people.
Yeah.
He puts the United States first. Barack Obama really didn't care about the United States.
No.
And he didn't try to put the United States first. But this scripture, when I heard that, I said, I've heard that before.
That's
I've
a
heard
great
that story.
scripture
I've
for
heard
that.
that story before. And that's Jesus speaking, and he's telling about two sons, two different people doing two different things. One did it, one said he would do it, the other said he wouldn't do it, but ended up doing it. So which is it? This is the problem. Barack Obama, remember he drew a red line in the sand with the Syrians, and they used chemical weapons. He didn't do anything about it. He said big words,
Right.
but he didn't do anything about it. On the other hand, President Trump never really, he wouldn't speak war language, but when the Syrians used chemical weapons, he didn't talk about it. He just did it.
Right.
He just went ahead and took care of business.
Right.
Sent,
He blasted them
he
over.
sent the cruise missiles
Yeah.
over there a couple different occasions
Yeah.
and took out their chemical weapons.
Right.
So this is the point. And the news media, I look at them, the Democrats and the news media are on the side of evil.
They're one of the same.
Because Jesus recognized this. He goes, in the last of the story said, "For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But tax collectors and harlots believed him. And when you saw it, you did not afterward relent and believe him." So
Right.
when the news media has seen the truth of what Donald Trump actually does and not what he says, they still won't believe him
Right.
because they're
Right.
evil.
Right.
This is an example of why they do the things they do. They're evil.
It's plain and
It's
simple.
pure and
Dave.
simple. They're evil. They're calling him a traitor and all this stuff. This is crazy stuff.
Yeah, it is. And see, and it goes, David, it goes to everything the Democrats is doing. I tell you what, I've even got an article for that, brother. Now in San Francisco, Monday, the Department of Elections issued voter registration forms for non-citizens who are eligible to vote for members of the San Francisco Board of Elections in November 2018. San Francisco is the first city in that state to allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. David, I tell you, it never ends. Stupid apparently has no limits. There's no end to the stupidity, to the things that these evil-minded people, Democrats, conjure up. I mean, every time when you think you've seen it all, brother, you ain't seen it all. You know what this is leading up to, don't you? If they was in power,
Oh yeah, they're gonna be voting in the presidential elections.
in national
It's
elections.
just like I said, always said that it's future voters for them.
Well, sure.
That's why they don't want to build a wall.
Sure.
Because they want future voters to come across, because they get them dependent upon government programs, and they know they got a voter for life because they're addicted to it.
But now here's what boggles my mind.
It's like the war on poverty back in 1965 that Lyndon Johnson launched, and that's how he got the black vote. That's why to this very day, most blacks are Democrats.
Yeah.
It's because of the war on poverty.
Yeah, but you know, they're coming off the plantation, brother, a little bit at a time, and I see it every day. There's so many black conservatives. They got their own Facebooks. They're doing videos. They're doing videos for Trump. They're out here protesting the influx of the illegals. And I tell you, I'm proud of them, brother. That does my heart good to see when anybody. There's a new group called what is it? Walk On or Walk Away. It's the Walk Away campaign, and I'm joined that group. And every time one of them makes a video that I'm friends with or somebody sends it to me, I watch that, David, because it does my heart good to see people that have realized they've made a mistake, Dave. But now, saying all that, I have to say this, is I only vote Republican, okay, because that's all I got. Okay, that's all I got. And I'm behind President Trump 100% as long as he stays going in the direction he's going. most of the Democrats, or let's say this, are Republicans. A lot of the Republicans, Dave, they ain't worth the dirt hardly that they're made out of. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're traitors. Their establishment, their deep state. It's not that I'm a dyed in the wool Republican, Dave. I try to fashion myself. I claim to be a Christian constitutionalist. Okay, I got the first part right. Okay, serving the Lord, born again Christian. But you know what? My government, local, state, and federal, forbids me to live as a constitutionalist. You know, me and you say as Christians, we say it from time to time that man has never experienced the absence of God like Jesus did on the cross. We have never experienced the total absence of God in this world. Okay? And, but, okay. Now, I have never experienced the total living under the same Constitution that my founding fathers lived under. I've never been able to live that way. You've never lived that way. And it's a burden to us. It's a burden to every family, every man and woman and child. It's a burden to society because we don't live under a full-fledged constitutional republic. And that's a dirty shame. It's a dirty shame, brother.
Yeah, it is. You know, getting back to San Francisco.
Let's get back to San Francisco.
I heard something that was kind of startled me. Me and my wife and son went a few years ago to San Francisco. Back then it was all right. But we were walking around in the evening and we got kind of scared because of the characters you saw in the streets.
Sure.
But I found out today that they spend, get this, $65 million a year on street cleaning. And they're adding this coming year $13 million to clean up human excrement and drug needles from the homeless.
Yeah. Do you
believe
that?
They say it's so bad that it's everywhere. People just do it all over the place.
Yeah.
And this is why they can't get any conventions.
Right.
These conventions that spend tens of millions of dollars in business in San Francisco are going to be done away with because people don't want to go there. It's not safe. And if you're holding a convention for some organization, you don't want your people walking around in that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's downtown. San Francisco is not that big of a city. A lot of people think it's a huge city. It's really not. The downtown area is relatively small.
Never been there, Dave.
If you look at it compared, have you been to Chicago?
I've been through Chicago.
Compared to Chicago, it's like, I'd say it's probably a tenth the size of Chicago downtown.
Really?
It's just not that big.
You imagine that it's a really big
you can
city.
walk around it, and you get on a cable car down by the bay, take it up the hill, and it's just a few minute trip, and you're done. I mean, you've gone through the entire city of San Francisco. It doesn't take that long, and we did that. We toured around the town, looked around at it, and it was not that bad back then, but the way it is now, you can't even go out. There's people shooting up in the streets and doing all kinds of nasty stuff right in the streets. And the cop, we were out there at night, and the cop told us that, you really shouldn't be walking around in this area at night.
Right.
And he escorted us back to where our hotel was.
Yeah.
Because he said, you can get in trouble out here.
Right.
He recognized the fact that there's strange people that live out there on the streets.
He lives there, Dave.
Sure.
And it's the same way with Los Angeles, where Maxine Waters' district, she don't even live in.
I think she's in Compton, California, is her district.
Yeah.
But no, she doesn't live there.
Yeah.
That's run down.
Compton, that's where she's from, but I don't know what shape Compton's in. But I know that in Los Angeles, block after block, there's 50 blocks in this one place. It's nothing but homeless, drug abuse, feces everywhere, the stench. They say the stench is so bad, and you know, them's not all American homeless, brother. Them are people, illegals. They're the drug addicts. They're just all kinds of people. David, that's come in and settled there, set up camps there, and they're not all Americans, brother.
Now, Los Angeles is so spread out, though. I mean, you've got where they, Hollywood, which is Hollywood's a long ways from downtown Los Angeles, and you fly into LAX. And I remember exactly how to get to the hotel from the airport. It was fairly simple. It was a straight shot down I-5, and it was real easy, and it looked fairly clean, and I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but you do in Hollywood. A lot of people don't realize that Hollywood's kind of run down. I mean, where you go where the Hollywood Walk of Fame is.
Yeah.
It's really run down out there. You see a lot.
I've heard that before.
You see a lot of homeless people. A lot of where years ago, I mean, back in the 30s and 40s, it was pristine. But now it's not anything like it was back originally when the Hollywood Walk of Fame was put in.
Right.
It's entirely different.
Right. Well, and you take Detroit. All right. I pray to God that them steel factories come back. But Detroit is a mess. Look at Chicago. I think there's so far, they've been over 100 and something people so far this year shot in Chicago. These cities, there's I seen a blue hat on my Facebook mimicking the Trump Make America Great Again hat. It says, turn America into a crap hole. That ain't the word they use. Into a crap hole, vote Democrat. And I tell you what, it blows my mind, David, how these people they
CNN likes that word. They used it all night long for 2 days, 3 days. They used that word.
Yeah.
When they were talking about Trump.
Yeah.
Some African countries or something.
Yeah. They're what they call that Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah.
It's a real condition. I'm convinced of it.
I believe it is. It's called a reprobate mind. They've been turned over, David.
It's TDS.
Yeah, TDS. And I tell you what, I am still looking for Jeff Sessions to crawl out from under the bed. You know, when you have a thunderstorm and it's thundering and lightning coming on, scares a dog to death. They'll crawl under the bed. They'll jump in your lap. They'll crawl under a chair. That's what Jeff Sessions reminds me of. Something that's been caught in a thunderstorm. He crawled under the bed, and he still ain't come out yet. And I've said this before, too. I hope I'm wrong about that man, David, but I tell you what, I ain't seen hide nor hair of him here in a good while. And when he does stick his head up, it ain't for long, and he ain't got nothing to say. I still believe, until I am convinced differently, the man's been blackmailed or he's just outright part of the deep state. And I honestly believe at this point in time in the United States of America, David, they are two different justice systems. All right?
Is.
Absolutely.
Or Hillary Clinton would be in jail right now if there weren't.
There you go.
Because that's a proof and evidence of it that she got away with. I mean, it was obvious.
Exactly.
That Navy sailor who took a picture of the submarine,
he sued him.
Pictures on his cell phone, didn't even show them to anyone.
Right.
Got rid of his phone. Somebody found the phone and discovered the pictures. They come knocking on his door and arrested him.
Yeah.
But what Hillary Clinton did was absolutely intentional.
Right.
And the reason she did it, she wanted to keep all of her correspondence private.
Yeah.
Because she didn't want anybody to look at them. And the reason she didn't want anybody to look at them because it was illegal stuff that she was doing.
Right.
She was selling the office.
Oh,
and that's
no
why
doubt.
she raised so much money for the Clinton Foundation, because everybody thought she was going to be elected president.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they get fooled?
Amen.
But that's what happened.
Divine intervention, brother.
I think it was.
There's
I
no
really
doubt
do.
about that.
You know, President Trump might not be a godly man, but he's God's man.
Amen, brother.
And he's in the right. I think he's where God wants him to be.
I think so.
And I think God has a plan, and that's why he's blessing Israel.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way things are, Israel needs a buddy.
Well, sure. Yeah.
This gal is socialist. What she said that called it the occupation.
Oh boy.
This girl
that one from New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little young girl. Did you see the interview she was in? That she's talking about Palestine being occupied and all this. She didn't know her.
That's crazy. That's crazy
talk.
Get
off the pot, man.
It was always Israel as far back as history goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And King David bought the Temple Mount. He bought that. He paid for it.
Yeah, yeah. And, but now let's see here. We got about 10 minutes left here, folks. If you want to call, anybody want to call, 1-800-508-5431, toll-free number. Don't cost you nothing.
This is how stupid the law is, Les. I heard on the news Planet Fitness is a health club down in, well, they're all over the country, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're down in Florida, the one I'm thinking of. This is a story. A real woman was kicked out because she complained about a transsexual man looking at her while she was putting her makeup on, and this guy's naked.
You believe that?
And the one that gets in trouble is the woman who's an actual woman. She's the one that gets in trouble because they want to be politically correct and allow this guy in the health club.
You believe that?
Naked,
nonsense?
watching women. When I heard it, I go, can this possibly be true?
Yeah.
And it is true.
They took her membership. Dave.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They revoked her membership.
Think of how many years ago would it have been if somebody would have been caught in that situation?
Yeah.
The cops would have been called.
Yeah.
They've been arrested and taken to jail as a pervert.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he is a pervert.
That's right. That's right.
He's just a plain old pervert.
What they've done, they've opened the door, David, for this kind of stuff. You know, all these 14, 15, 25 genders, and if you depend on what you feel like today, is who you can be nonsense. Dave, I tell you what, that it just it gets under my skin. Sometimes I don't even know what to say. Sometimes it's so bizarre. You know what I mean?
It is bizarre.
It is absolutely ridiculous, and I just don't. The lawmakers. Where is the good lawmakers, Dave? That make laws to protect the innocent people, that don't protect children. They talk about, you got all these Democrats out here whining and crying about these children that's over there.
But yeah, they want to do every abortion they possibly can,
and let the perverts
and they don't care about.
bathroom.
They don't care, but they want perverts in the bathroom. They don't care about the kids, because if they did, they'd stop the abortion.
It's all phony, Dave.
It is phony.
It's phony.
They think these kids don't exist in the womb. They don't think they're alive. But yet they look at these kids. I feel sorry for them. 2, 3, 4-year-olds. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
But let's face it. You wouldn't take your kid to a bank robbery that you was going to do, would you?
Right.
Because you know that you're going to be separated from your child. They're not going to put the kid in jail.
Right.
They're going to put you in jail when they catch you. Or they may even shoot you.
Exactly, yeah.
And you might even get your kids shot.
If I sneak my kids into Kings Island over there and I get caught, okay, do you think they're going to tell me that's okay for the sake of my kids to just go on and have a good time? Okay, Now, in today's world, David, when they throw the whole family out of Kings Island, the kids has been taught to get mad at Kings Island, get upset with Kings Island instead of getting mad at your parents, the ones that's responsible for sneaking you in there. That's the kind of warped society that we're living in today. Nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions. They don't want to man up, Dave, and say that it's my fault. It's always somebody else's fault, or somebody else caused them to do it. You know, it's crazy.
But you know, there are some sane people left in this country.
There's a few of us.
And they know the difference between right and wrong, and they know that there's a God in heaven, and they know that He's coming back one of these days,
Right.
and he ain't gonna put up with it.
But
I got
now,
news
Dave,
for him. He ain't gonna put up with it.
those of us that are believers, and let me put it this way too. Also, there's a lot of good moral people out there that never step foot inside a church. We need to band together with the people that believe in right and wrong. Okay, David, and stand up and fight this nonsense. We need to stand together and fight these crazy things that's going on in our society. Because like I said in the beginning, Dave, us as Christians, we can't use the excuse that, well, we've got no control over it. It's going to happen anyway. It's Bible prophecy. So let's just sit back and watch it happen. That's a pretty lame excuse. That's a cop-out, brother. We should be standing up and fighting for righteousness and fighting against these evil things that has been pushed on us. What if it was your daughter that was in the bathroom? Target is one of the first ones that stood up and said, oh, yeah, we'll allow transgenders, we'll allow men in the women's restroom. They're one of the first ones to stand up and allow that nonsense.
People sent them an email saying that, hey, we're not going to associate with your store. We're not coming to it. We're boycotting it. And then they might figure out there's more good people than they think.
And that's worked in some cases.
It should work.
However, Dave, it should never get to that point, brother. We should have enough common sense, okay, to realize right and wrong. There's been a right and a wrong since the beginning of time. And we used to be a nation, Dave, to where there was absolutes, there was black and whites. There wasn't very many gray areas. But now you look at it today, these young kids growing up with the parents that some of them's growing up with, they don't know straight up. They have no guidance. Okay, so the good people, the moral people of this country, if you ever get an opportunity to mentor a kid, man, take a kid under your wing and teach them, right from wrong. There's a couple other things I want to look at, Dave. We got we probably got about 5 minutes left maybe here. And I better leave my headphones on so I can hear Jimmy.
This thing about the Supreme Court, though, it's got me perturbed. Why in the world do they even hear these cases when there's just obviously there is a right and wrong?
Right.
I mean, why would this case like that happened in Florida with the woman and the naked man in the gym?
Why should that have to go to Supreme
Why should
Court?
that even have to go to court?
Court, period.
Common sense would tell you that for years it's just been the way things were. That you have a men's room, you have a women's room, and you don't go into other. It's perversion. It's sick.
Well, and always you look at Europe and you look at not all over Europe, but some of the European countries. They've always been a little more liberal with sex and alcohol than America. Okay, but here's the deal. You're in America over here. You're not in Europe, okay? You come to America, you be American. You act like an American. You uphold our laws and our standards, and because we set the standard. Our lawmakers set the standard of what's right and wrong. Not what you think is right and wrong, but look at the shape that we're in. And now you got the Pope. Pope says the U.S. must open its borders. I got news for the Pope. He can take that right on down the road. Why don't he let him into the Vatican if he thinks it's so holy for us to open our borders that we must open our borders and let all these people in? Let them in the Vatican over there.
See, they're jumping on those ships in North Africa. They're sailing across to Sicily, and a lot of them's coming in through Italy. So, because it's the closest point to North Africa. Because you get to jump on a ship in North Africa, they smuggle you. They don't smuggle you. They just fill up the ship, and half the time they can't make it to the other side. They have to have help because the ship about sinks.
Well, there's so many people in it.
So they grab them all off and they take them to Italy, and then they go all over Europe.
Yeah.
And
look at Europe today.
And Merkel in Germany, she accepts everybody that applies.
She single-handedly destroyed a great country. Germany, after the war, it bounced back. America rebuilt it, and it was a thriving industrial nation, David. And the people, they become proud Germans. They worked hard. Now look at it now.
But see, Les, the thing is, if you take all of Europe, at least most of Western Europe, from Spain, Great Britain, France, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands, even Norway, Finland, Sweden. If you take those countries and you look at them, the population is quite old. The median population is probably in their 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you look at Muslim countries like, say, Turkey.
Yeah.
It's very young, and so it is with most of the North African
countries.
Well,
Iran, too.
They're so young.
Yeah.
Their average median age is like at 28 years old.
Yeah.
This is crazy, and that's what's happening. You're having the European population is dying off. The reason Merkel done these things is because the German economy needs workers. So that's why she's letting all these people in.
But they ain't none of them working, David.
But what it's going to do is it's going to change your entire culture.
Well, sure it is.
They don't speak German.
Yeah.
They don't have signs in Arabic. They have to accommodate them, and they can't do it because there's too many of them.
Right. We got 1 minute, Dave. Well, I tell you what, though. Here again, it's just like the ones sneaking into this country. They're not assimilating. Okay? It's okay to be a Muslim. All right, as long as you ain't blowing me up, and as long as you're abiding by our laws and things. You know, one country that hasn't invited Muslims into their country, Poland. And they've never had a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. They don't have the problems these other places have. Folks, this is Les Skymo. Thank you, Facebook fans. God bless you. Thank you for watching. This is me and Dave on Unscheduled. Dave, you want to tell them bye?
We'll see you all next
week, 7 o'clock p.m. Unscheduled. And we'll see you here next time. And I hope you enjoyed the show, folks. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Joseph. This is Skymo and Dave. We're out.